Okay, so ahora vamos a hablar de los pronombres de objeto indirecto. And you'll note that this has a quien or a quienes as a subtitle, which should lead you to realize, hopefully, that these have to do with people or animals, but no things. Okay? So be aware, el objeto indirecto de una oración está afectada indirectamente por la acción del verbo. So it's affected indirectly by the action of the verb. So it's always going to be like to whom someone speaks, to whom someone gives something, for whom someone does something, so things along those lines. Y siempre va a ser una persona o un animal. You're going to have some examples here in English with indirect objects. In some cases, you'll see the indirect object pronouns, and you'll note they look a little different in some cases in English and in Spanish, the indirect object pronouns in the questions as well as an indirect object pronoun in the answer, okay? So what you have here is, for our first example in English, and once again, these are the same ones you'll see in the example chart on the next slide. Did you speak to the patient? Yes, I spoke to him, or yes, I spoke to her. Once again, it's very difficult, although we might say them in English, to do that exact translation in Spanish, given the way the language works, okay? So to him or to her is a way of avoiding repeating the patient. Did they give you a cast? And be aware, we say in English, did they give you a cast? But the actual accurate way of saying this would be, did they give a cast to you? Okay? But we speak differently, we shorten things a lot. Did they give you a cast? So your answer would be, yes, they gave me a cast. That's the way most of us would speak. To speak about to whom a cast was given. But the actual most grammatically accurate translation would be, they gave a cast to me. But once again, that's not how we speak. And finally, did you write a prescription for me? And no, I did not write a prescription for you. Okay, so you'll notice that for the second two examples, you've got the you as in to you in the question, and then for me as in the question for the third example, that you do have that indirect object pronoun as opposed to a proper noun. For example, as the to the patient in the first example. Okay. So to see that the way this works here compared to Spanish, did you speak to the patient en inglés? And hablaste al paciente o hablaste a la paciente? And our answer in English, yes, I spoke to him, or yes, I spoke to her. And in Spanish, we have sí le hablé. Le is how we would say to him or to her or for her. Indirect object pronouns do not have gender, so there's no going back and forth between masculine and feminine. The second example, did they give you a cast, or did they give a cast to you? Dieron un yeso a ti, or you could actually use an indirect object pronoun in the question and say te dieron un yeso. The answer in English, yes, they gave me a cast, or yes, they gave a cast to me. And our answer, sí, me dieron un yeso, me meaning to me. And you'll notice that this me here, of course, is the same in terms of spelling as a lot of the other pronouns we've worked with, the reflexives and the direct object pronouns. So keep that in mind, that may, of course, can mean a few different things depending on the context of the rest of the sentence. And our final example, did you write a prescription for me? En español, escribió usted una receta para mí? Okay. And the answer, no, I did not write a prescription for you. And in español, no te escribí una receta. I did not write a prescription for you, te being for you, in terms of being able to answer the question, okay? So keep that in mind. And this is something else we will work through a little bit, hopefully in class, a little more in person when we get there, to be able to figure out exactly how we work through this, being able to answer questions and also being able to use the appropriate indirect object pronoun in an answer. Once again, it's very important to remember that the indirect object is to whom or for whom an action is done, and it will never, ever be an item. It will not be a thing. It will not be an object. It will never be an item. Keep that in mind. Very important to remember. And so we notice that we have the pronombres de objeto directo here. This is on the top of página 4 del paquete de apuntes. So tu for me is me. Tu for you, informal, is te. To or for him, her, or you formal is le, and you'll notice there is no it here because it cannot refer to objects. To or for us is nos. To or for you all in España is os. And to or for them or you all is les. And just like the direct object pronouns, we typically use indirect object pronouns in the context of a conversation to avoid repeating ourselves or saying proper names or using proper nouns again and again and again and again, using nouns again and again, becoming very repetitive. And you do kind of have to find and replace, but with indirect object pronouns, and in some cases, it's much more common to not just have to find and replace in the context of a conversation, but also somehow flip that indirect object pronoun so that it does accurately answer the question. That's something we'll work through a little more in class in the near future, okay? Rules for placement are the same, either before a conjugated verb in a sentence that only has one verb, and they can always go here in sentences that do not contain commands. And if the sentence is attached to the end of an infinitive or present participle, you can attach it to the end of the infinitive or present participle. And of course, commands have that different scenario there that they must be attached to the end of an affirmative command. And if you're working with a negative command, they must be between the no and the command form of the verb. Finally, we're going to work with our last few examples here at the bottom of Página 4. So we have our question and answer sets once again. So for A, our example, me encontraron una silla de ruedas para ti. Did they find a wheelchair for you? Or as we would say if we were actually just speaking, did they find you a wheelchair? And the answer being, sí, me encontraron una silla de ruedas. Yes, they found me a wheelchair if we're speaking the way we're to speak, or they found a wheelchair for me if we're speaking, quote unquote, proper English, okay? And me, once again, for whom they found a wheelchair, whoever they happen to be. B, ¿vas a hablar a la médica hoy? Are you going to speak to the doctor today? And our answer, no le voy a hablar hoy. And in this case, you have le replacing the a la médica to her. And le is in front of the conjugated verb voy. And we also have no voy a hablarle hoy. Means the exact same thing. No, I am not going to speak with her today or talk to her today. And the le is attached to the end of the infinitive hablar. And say is actually the same exact example that we had for the direct object pronoun. Señora, me corté, ¿puedes dar una curita a mí? And we have, sí, puedo darte una curita. Yes, I can give you a Band-Aid. With the indirect object pronoun attached to the end of the infinitive. Or, sí, te puedo dar una curita. Yes, I can give you a Band-Aid with it before the conjugated verb puedo. We'll continue to work with these in class and get more practice. Gracias.